Narcissism is a term we hear a lot about nowadays. Is it because there is just a greater awareness of this personality disorder that has, for the most part, always existed? Or is there a growing epidemic of the actual prevalence of this in our society, in individuals, and collectively in groups? The term narcissism comes from a Greek myth about a man named Narcissus. He falls in love with his own reflection, and it ends in his demise. He dies of sorrow. His overindulgence in his own appearance ends in his death. And as always, there is a Roman version of this myth in which there is a woman named Echo who tries to get his attention, who seems to fall in love with him, and he pushes her aside, and then she ends up becoming a mere echo in the glens. This seems to be happening even in modern era. So, narcissism today is defined as excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Psychologists define it as a personality disorder involving traits such as selfishness, a lack of empathy, and sense of entitlement, and a need for admiration. This is the individual definition of narcissistic personality disorder. However, there is also such a thing as collective narcissism, which seems to be playing a role in today's society as well, because this is when a group focuses on reasons why they are above other groups who are not in their group, and therefore get an inflated sense of ego. This concept isn't new, and it was first proposed by psychoanalyst Erich Fromm and sociologist Theodor Adorno. Here is more on this term.
Collective narcissism, or group narcissism, is a type of narcissism where an individual has an inflated self-love of his or her own in-group, where an in-group is a group in which an individual is personally involved. While the classic definition of narcissism focuses on the individual, collective narcissism asserts that one can have a similar excessively high opinion of a group, and that a group can function as a narcissistic entity. Collective narcissism is related to ethnocentrism. However, ethnocentrism primarily focuses on self-centeredness at an ethnic or cultural level, while collective narcissism is extended to any type of in-group, beyond just cultures and ethnicities. Some theorists believe group-level narcissism to be an extension of individual narcissism, though others believe the two to be independent of each other.
There is a fine balance between having pride in oneself's heritage and putting oneself and their entire group that they belong with and are identifying with above all others, looking down and seeking ways to destroy or undermine other groups. Now, nationalism was brought up when collective narcissism first came about as a term in the 30s. There is also a fine balance between being a nationalist that is proud of your country and one who is unrealistic and believes that your country should be dominant and run the entire world and do things for everybody because they're absolutely perfect in a sense. Social media seems to make it easy for even more of these groups to form across larger distances than ever before. It's not just about nationalists going to the extreme. Now it's about people using their race, at times their sexual orientation, to seek attention under the guise of advocacy, because when it comes to actually doing some justice for their community, they turn around and stage attacks, which are only harmful to those they claim they are advocating for. And it takes away from the true advocates who make their work about the other people and not themselves and not seeking attention.
Literally making love to ourselves psychologically, falling in love with ourselves. If you take photos of yourself all the time, you must be in love. Developing emotional investment in ourselves. This is known as catexis. Catexis is emotional investment. Object relation theory in psychology told us that we start by being emotionally invested in ourselves, And then we learn to externalize this investment and invest in others. And this is called object relations. We invest in objects. But social media reverses this process, creates regression. Indeed, social media encourages very, very primitive, infantile, baby-like defense mechanisms, such as splitting. You're either my friend or my enemy. You don't like me, you are my enemy. You like me, you're my friend. It's the like-dislike. It's very binary, binary state. Very, very primitive, baby-like.
This was apparent during the Jussie Smollett interview when he said anybody who didn't believe his story was basically a racist, homophobic bigot. And he also knows by stirring up controversy, he is going to sell out his shows as he did. He is going to gain more followers as he did. Unfortunately, this is the nature of social media.
Foster, engender, and enhance exactly these emotions. Right. There is no other way. Yes. You can't encourage voluntarism or love and expect repeat usage. Simply, there's no studies that support this. So it's no wonder that these platforms ended up being platforms for hate speech, for fake news, for bullying, cyberbullying. No wonder at all. They were built for this. Yes. They were absolutely built for this. Consider, for example, Twitter. Twitter limited the number of characters until recently to 140. Now they increased it to 160. But never mind, 140. What we know is that aggressive speech acts are much shorter. I'm serious completely. There are psychological studies from the 60s, 70s, yes. Princeton studies, and so on, that have demonstrated that aggressive speech acts are much shorter than non-aggressive speech.
It makes sense. If I'm going to have road rage, I'm going to say fuck you. I'm not going to say listen, I'm very disappointed with the way that you drove for
exactly.
During his interview, Jussie also expressed that he was used to receiving harassment via online methods, and this may have been part of what attributed to his thought process, which put him in a bubble, as so many celebrities and out-of-touch politicians currently are, very close-minded, only thinking about themselves from their own perspective, because if he was truly trying to do more than seek attention and fame, he wouldn't be doing what he is doing right now. He would not have staged an attack and then sat on a national news outlet and told everybody that if they didn't believe him, they were wrong and they were racist, homophobic bigots. Too many people are thriving too much off of social media and the attention it provides. It has become a fuel for narcissism, and so many people think that advocacy will disguise that.
Stand on all this, on the entire
the women's march. It's a pretty friendly thing. I've been a bit disappointed in that I haven't really been able to find anybody who has like very strong positions on any issues. Everybody just seems kind of milquetoast, like, I'm just here to support vaguely this or that, and they don't really know why they're here. And I think, I'll be honest, I think that most people are here for Instagram pictures. I think they want to be seen at the march, right? It's really disappointing.
Majority are here to support here, but I do think a big percentage of people are just here just to get pictures.
Yeah, it's anyway. Well, good luck with your reporting.
Yes,
good luck with find some well-educated.
That was conservative YouTuber Mr. Reagan on the left and a liberal reporter on the right. And I believe that there are many examples of this where, unfortunately, instead of really trying to be productive citizens, we are splitting on issues and making it like two sides of a sports game, which you're right or you're wrong, and there is no in between. And people like Jussie are part of the negative cycle that only impedes true progressivism. Here is a tweet that has been deleted, which showcases the way he spoke down to the person and the people that he looked at as outside of his group. And it seems very reflective of him to call somebody else a dumpster full of hate. I really hope the best for him and hope it changes. And I don't want to call him a dumpster, but he's full of hate.
We don't have to get rid of the smartphone. We don't have to get rid of the idea of social media. We just have to get rid of the manipulation machine that's in the background.
To tie this all together, social media has made our lives even more about ourselves. We go places, we discover new things, and we've got to take that selfie with our faces in it. Think about it. That didn't happen 10 or 20 years ago, and it can be used for great and positive things. However, it seems that there is a lot of collective narcissism, a lot of people breaking apart in groups, a lot of fallacies going on, and a lot of conquer and divide, which is what they want, because with a tool such as the internet, we could be using it for so many great things to come together as the biggest majority ever and really do some great things to progress. When your life centers around the next selfie you're going to take and you're used to getting attention, you may feel a certain way, even more so about not getting attention from something like an alleged hate letter sent to you, because your life revolves around attention and admiration and adoration being thrown your way. And the less you have of it, the less good you feel. That has all been enhanced by social media, and it has turned true social advocacy work into something that it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be about yourself, and it shouldn't be about your pain. And knowing if you showcase that, you will gain more followers, equaling more attention and more profit, which is something that has never taken place in humanity before. This is why I feel Jussie Smollett has gone from being a successful actor to somebody who caused his own demise by focusing on himself, overindulging in his own appearance and his own pain, even drowning in his sorrow, such as narcissists. And a lot of people are well meaning but can still form narcissistic traits because they are cultivated in these end groups on social media, then distorting the reality of many who did start with good intentions. We should take a step back, listen to some good old music, read good classical literature, read powerful speeches such as that of President Kennedy, where he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." A little earlier in that same speech, he says, "So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate." The true spirit of America is still alive and well in us all, and it has nothing to do with concentrating on yourself and your feelings and expecting others to honor that. It is about honoring what makes us a group collectively and never taking for granted all those who made many sacrifices before you. We can try our best to keep ourselves and our children in check in order to help stop the devastation that is caused by instances such as Jussie Smollett and his alleged concocted attack. The healthiest thing for all humans to do will always be to keep your perspectives open and not focus merely on yourself.